Okay, hi there. Welcome. It's 6 minutes after 10. Good morning. It's time for the Real Estate Fix with Rich. I'm Rich Sherman, your host. You're listening to 98.1 FM, AM 1220, KHTS. I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in, as always. We got a very, very big show today. We got a very special guest. We have Rich Pisani, the president of SRAR in here, Rich Pisani, the president of SRAR, the Southland Regional Association of Realtors, which is a group that I belong to, have for, over 30 years now, being a realtor in good standing, a group that I think would be very hard to survive in real estate without SRAR. They do so much terrific work. They do a lot of stuff. So we're going to talk to him today about all the stuff that SRAR does. But before we get into the interview, a couple of things. First, I wanted to talk about, before I get into the show too much today, I wanted to do something, it's a quick little personal thing. I wanted to say there's some people in my life who've gone through some pretty significant loss lately. They've had loved ones pass away, and I just wanted to let them know that we're thinking about you guys on air and off. It's never fun when somebody passes away, and however old they get, however far they get to run. It's always sad to lose someone, so just let you guys know, where you guys know who you are. We're thinking about you. I don't want to call you out on the air, but we're thinking about you. Anyway, on with the show. So let's talk about the market, which is always where I like to start the show. If you guys listen regularly, I always like to start the first segment of the show with sort of market wrap-up stuff. And the market at the moment, there's been some pretty interesting stuff happening. Not a lot. Real estate doesn't usually tend to move a whole lot week to week, but we did get some good stuff in that the interest rate is a little bit lower, which is good. And so that helps. It always gets more people into the market. But again, there's still very few houses on the market. Biggest problem is still availability and affordability, the two A words. Affordability, because the interest rate has gone up so much, and that's made most people are now looking at mortgage rates twice what they were a year and a half ago to buy or sell a house. With a new loan, I should say, and there's not a whole lot on the market. So if you have a house to sell, you're in real good shape, because prices, strangely, uncharacteristically, are continuing to go up a little bit because there is so little on the market, because the volume of available properties is as low as it is. And despite the higher interest rate, people are still buying. I mean, as I keep explaining, the real estate market as a whole is shrinking. So what's happened is the real estate market, the amount of houses bought and sold, year over year has shrunk. Well, I was saying 35%, but it's actually gotten a bit worse. It's actually about 40% now, nationwide. Those numbers hold true in California. So the entire market is shrinking. It's gotten smaller. There are fewer people buying houses, there are fewer people selling houses. That's the bad news. The good news is there are still houses out there to buy. There are still buyers buying them. It's just shrunk. And what's happened is prices are dictated, markets are dictated largely by supply and demand. I'm oversimplifying it, so if you're an economist and you're listening to this, I know. And if you want to give me a call, you can call me and come on the show and give me a more detailed explanation. But anyway, supply and demand dictates the market. It really does. And right now we've got a situation where the market is shrinking, and it's pretty simple. Supply has gone down quicker than demand. So we're getting a bit of a bounce out of the market. And if you look at other markets where it's happening nationwide, but other markets that are seeing less of that in states like Florida are having a lot more trouble than places like California. And I got the SRAR, the Southland Regional Associate of Realtors, puts out this great data sheet every month, and I like to quote from it. So I'm just going to read you part of it. Now they break it into two sections. One is the San Fernando Valley, the other is the Santa Clarita Valley. And I want you to notice the difference between these two. So I'm going to start with the San Fernando Valley. Let's see here. So Southland Regional Association of Realtors reports that month-over-month sales in May of 2023 have increased 22%, although closed sales of 755 properties represent a sharp decline from sales of 1,161 a year ago. Again, roughly 40%, 35%. The recent spike is an encouraging sign for the market. In addition, single-family homes are responsible for a decrease of 24% in active listings from May 2022, while condominium active listings also fell by 24%. Pay attention to that number. We're going to come back to that later. In the San Fernando Valley, the number of listings for condominiums has fallen 24%. The current active inventory represents an incredibly low 1.7 month supply, which is a decline from the 1.9 month supply a month ago. In other words, exactly what we were talking about. There are fewer houses on the market. And largely, I'll use myself as an example. I have an interest rate well below 4%. If I were to sell my house, and I'm demographically speaking right in that pocket where you'd think I would be selling my house and buying the next one, having a daughter who's going to be out of the house soon, and I'm not going to do it. And the reason I'm not going to do it is because I have an interest rate at 3.25, and why would I give that up to go into an interest rate at 6.5? Even if I bought my own house back, my payment would more than double. So, and you're seeing that's a lot of that there. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac tell us that 70%, and this is a very telling number, 70% of every mortgage in the United States right now is at 4% or lower. So if you've got a mortgage at under 4%, you got to be real motivated to sell if you're going to do that. You got to have a much bigger reason than just I'd like a bigger house or I'd like a smaller house or something else is going on. Something else in your life is going to have to trip that off. But anyway, median sales prices of single-family homes that changed owners during May, this is again in the San Fernando Valley, 985,000, which is down 8% year over year. The condominium median home sale price reported this May was 615,000, down 1% year after year. So that's kind of what's going on in the San Fernando Valley. Now I'll get into a little more of the data in a second, but let's contrast that to the Santa Clarita Valley. San Fernando versus Santa Clarita. Now, first of all, it's not fair to compare the two because we're very different. Here in Santa Clarita, we have about 300,000 people. In the San Fernando Valley, and I think I knew this, but looking this up kind of shocked me, 1.5 to 1.6 million people currently live in the San Fernando Valley. Also, the rates of unemployment are a big deal as well because the rate of unemployment in Santa Clarita is 3.5%. The rate of unemployment in the San Fernando Valley is 4.5%. Obviously, very different economies, even though they're right next to each other. And the San Fernando Valley has a population that's roughly 5 times that of Santa Clarita Valley, so it's a very different sort of market, but good to pay attention to because the larger the market, the more numbers you've got, especially if it's right next door, the more you can kind of tell what's going on. The picture becomes a lot clearer the more data you get. Anyway, so let's see. So we've reported in May of 2023, this is the Santa Clarita Valley, our valley, reported in May of 2008, 289 homes and condominiums are sold in the Santa Clarita Valley, marking a 34% increase from the previous year. Notice in the San Fernando Valley was a decrease. Here it's an increase. Now they're lumping condos and houses together, but this is a remarkable trend that began in January in 2023 when only 128 homes and condos were sold, which is unbelievably low. Let's see. The housing supply remains incredibly tight with an average 1 month of available inventory on the market. Additionally, the median list price is $875,000, is at an all-time high. Now, I take issue with that. I don't think that is an all-time high, but it is very high and a lot higher than it ordinarily would be given the current state of the market and the interest rate and all that other fun stuff. But meanwhile, the median sales price of both homes and condominiums has remained relatively stable over the past 2 years. For instance, the median sales price in May of 2023 in the Santa Clarita Valley was $770,000, reflecting a 3% decline from the previous year. However, the median sales price of single-family homes increased by 1% year over year, reaching $860,000. So it is kind of interesting what's going on. Condos are kind of leading the charge in Santa Clarita, and these are the big numbers. And this is sort of important to pay attention to. So let's take a look at year over year, just the last year compared to this year, what the differences are between the median sales price for single-family homes. The median sales price in Santa Clarita right now is $860,000. That's up 1% year over year. Meanwhile, the median sales price for a single-family home in the San Fernando Valley is $985,000, which is $125,000 more than Santa Clarita Valley. But that's a number that is down 8% year over year. So that's the big number. In the Santa Clarita Valley, we're up 1% year over year, but in the San Fernando Valley, they're down 8%. And that's a lot, and the reasons for that are very simple. That's what I'm going to tell you next. In the Santa Clarita Valley, especially let's talk houses and we'll talk condos. In the Santa Clarita Valley, in May, we got 200 new houses hit the market, 221 total active listings, 137 sales. That's a lot. It's not a lot compared to in the San Fernando Valley, 813 new listings in the same time period, 1,061 active listings, 431 active sales. Also, the average days on market slightly higher here than there. There's 29, here's 32. Not a huge difference, but that number really kind of tells the story. The average sales price for single-family homes in a much larger data area with much more diverse economic situation, the San Fernando Valley, has gone down 8% year over year, whereas in the Santa Clarita Valley, we're up 1% year over year. Now, that tells you two things. The Santa Clarita Valley is holding its value a little bit better than the San Fernando Valley, which is the big takeaway. But second to that is that we're not going to keep that. When a population that is 5 times yours and is right next door and has a very similar economy to yours is going down, you can bet that's the trajectory you're going to head to as well. Now, I don't think it's going to be much. I've been saying we're going to lose about 5% by the end of this year, in addition to the 10% we've lost up to this point. Because although I enjoy the market snapshot and I enjoy they're saying 1% year over year, but I think if you dig into the numbers a little bit deeper, what you'll find is, like if you compare April of last year to April of this year, is that overall the market, and this is kind of nationwide, we've lost about 10%. And that's just a result of sort of the post-pandemic boom leveling out. And I think it's going to fall about another 5. I hope I'm wrong because it all depends on the interest rate. So let's transition into that, and then I'll give you some conclusions here because I think that's the important part. I like spewing data, but I think most people just like conclusions. Anyway, the interest rate, the Fed, in their last meetings we talked about last week, elected not to raise the rate again, which is very, very helpful, but it is not the end of the story because European banks did. So much like my comparison between the Santa Clarita Valley and the San Fernando Valley, we're talking interest rate, we need to compare the U.S. economy and how the U.S. looks at the interest rate versus the rest of the world. And it's very well and good that the U.S. leads the way, and we do. We have the largest economy. That's why the Fed is as powerful as it is, not just in the United States, but worldwide. But you have to pay some attention to is what's happening to what's the interest rate doing in other countries in the world. There are other real estate economies in the world, like that of England, like that of Canada, Mexico, etc., that are bellwethers of what may or may not happen here. So it's a good idea to pay attention. And the banks in Europe have all raised the interest rate. So it's all well and good that our Fed didn't raise it, and our market reacted nicely to that and didn't really go up a whole lot. Matter of fact, it came down a little as far as interest rates on mortgages, but Europe's went up. So I think, again, that's a harbinger for what's to come here. I think the Fed, and I've been saying this for a while, I think the Fed is going to raise interest rate at least 2 more times between now and the end of the year. Again, I really hope I'm wrong about that, although this week Powell came out and said, oh, I think we're going to have to raise a little bit more because we need to get inflation down. And again, I don't understand their inflationary target of 2% when cost of living is 3.5%. I keep saying that over and over again. But again, the Fed is smarter than I am, so we'll just have to roll with that. Because I think what is going to happen is they're going to raise the interest rate 2 more times. I don't think the money is going to run into the bond market like it did when the banks, when First Republic and a couple of the other banks failed. I don't think there's going to be that much nervousness about it. So I think the money's going to stay in the stock market. And the reason that is important is if the money stays in the stock market, the interest rate's going to go up for single-family homes, for buying a house. If investors panic because of a Fed rise and the money moves into the bond markets because they're worried, then the interest rate won't go up. It may even go down. So that's really the thing to pay attention to. Whenever the Fed raises the interest rate, the next thing to look at is how are the bond markets reacting? Or the stock market, I should say, reacting. Because if investor money stays in stocks, we're good. If investor money moves into bonds, sorry, I got that backwards. If investor money stays into stocks, interest rates are going up. If it goes into bonds, then the interest rates are going to stay stable or go down. So that's kind of the bellwether to look at. So what I would tell you is, if you have a house to sell, now is a good time to do that because prices are a little bit higher than they ordinarily would be. They're a little bit higher in our area than they ordinarily would be. So for goodness sake, take advantage of that. I mean, a good time to sell something is when not everyone else is selling it. So if there are this few properties on the market, and there are, ask anyone who's working with buyers right now, or ask a buyer who's trying to buy a house anywhere right now, any price range, and they'll tell you that there's just so little inventory out there. Take advantage of that. You will get more for your house now than you are likely to get 6 months from now. Now again, I may be wrong. I'm not right about everything, but I'm right a lot more than most of the people you know, and I'm right a lot more than I'm wrong, and that's kind of why I have a radio show. We'll see. If I'm wrong enough, maybe they'll show me the door. But till that day dawns, yeah, if you got a house to sell, get into the market now. You will not regret it. And if you're looking to buy a house, that's a much different story. If you're looking to buy a house, because I am the guy saying that I think prices are going to come down a little bit, but interest rates are going to go up. So you've got to really, again, get into the game now, because when you're buying a house, the interest rate is going to affect you, believe it or not, more than the sales price. Now, I don't want to say the sales price is unimportant. Of course it's not. It's very important what you buy a house for. But your interest rate is going to affect your payment. It's going to affect what you actually wind up paying for that house over the time that you're in it. And if you pay it off, even more so. So having that interest rate lower than higher, even a little bit, is going to make a massive difference. So again, if you're a buyer, get in the game. It may take you a couple months to get yourself in a position where you can get the best loan. Take advantage of the time. If you need to clean up the credit, do it. If you need to save up more for a down payment, do it. But let's start shopping now. Get yourself in position to do that stuff now. You're going to be a lot happier later. You may find that you're ready to go now. That's what I would advise. So keep in mind, I'm a realtor, so my advice is sort of jaded here. I always think people should get involved, but especially now, looking at the numbers, if you got a house to sell, do it now. You're going to be much happier than you will be 6 months, a year from now. And if you're a buyer, I would say the same thing. And that's based more on interest rates than it is on purchase price. So yeah, if you're in it, get into the game. And if you have questions about this stuff, if you want to go any deeper with this stuff, you can always call me. I give out my number on the air. I got a call at 5 o'clock this morning from somebody on the East Coast who had a burning question to ask me, which I was happy to answer. My wife not too thrilled that I did that. Sorry, honey. But she usually sleeps through this stuff. It was just, anyway, I should have gone in the other room. My fault. Anyway, yeah, and I get calls all over the country, so please feel free to give me a call. You can reach me at 661-714-1400. That is my cell phone number. That is my actual personal cell phone number. I get that question all the time. 661-714-1400. And I answer that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unless I'm on the radio. So, Mom, if you're listening, please stop calling me while I'm on the air. I'm only on the air once a week. It's only an hour. Before that, after that's fine. And if you do call me while I'm on the air and I don't answer, don't get mad when I call you back. It's not new. And for those of you listening, wondering if my mom's going to get mad at me, she doesn't really listen to the show, so you don't have to worry about it. I don't. Anyway, let's get to the interview because that's going to be the most fun thing I think we get to do today. So I tell you what, why don't we take a break? We'll listen to some commercials. We like to do that sort of thing. Let some of the advertisers get in there. And then we're going to have Rich Pisani, the president of SRAR, come in and talk to us on the show, which is very nice of him to do. So when you come back, we'll have Rich Pisani in the booth. This is Rich Sherman on The Fix with Rich, KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220. Come back after the break. Hi there. Good morning, everybody. This is Rich Sherman. You're listening to KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220. You're listening to The Fix with Rich. I'm your host, Rich Sherman. And I can't believe how fortunate I am. We have Rich Pisani, the president of SRR, the Southland Regional Association of Realtors, in the booth with us today, which is I'm very excited about because we don't usually get guests quite this big. I was very surprised when I asked and you guys said, hey, sure. Okay.
I wouldn't say that.
All right, let me go over your bio a little bit here. I don't want to embarrass you. Let me go over your bio a little bit. Okay, so you're the 2023 SRAR president. You graduated from San Jose State. You were a talent coordinator and manager prior to getting into this.
Correct.
Right? You're a broker for 4 Keller Williams offices.
Yeah.
All over the place. I think you have like 1,000 agents or something.
About, yes.
Yeah. So you've been licensed since 2005, a broker since 2017. And that's a pretty impressive bio right there. I mean, we don't usually get that. We usually get me. I've been doing this as long, but I don't have 1,000 agents working for me. I'm not the president of the board of realtors. So it's very exciting to have somebody of your caliber in the booth today. So that's great. So we have some questions for you.
Okay. And Thank you for having me, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure. When I heard back from when I heard back from staff, oh sure, he'll do it. Really? Has he heard the show before? Because I'm a little curious. But I didn't push that too far because I got the answer I wanted. I'm good. But anyway, so I've got some questions for you that I want to ask for. I've got some questions from some friends and some family that I asked because I got a hold of them last night and I said, hey, I'm going to have the president of the board of realtors in tomorrow. If you could ask him one question, what would it be? Because I was looking for outside perspectives. And I think I made a mistake by asking for outside perspectives because they're way out, but we'll get into those in a bit. But let's start here. I wanted to bring you on today because the topic I really wanted to get into, and it just drives me nuts, because I fix people's problems. It's what I do. I've been doing pro bono stuff for 30 years, and I get all kinds of crazy stuff. And I will tell you the one common denominator, as different as they all are, sometimes it's a probate issue, sometimes it's a mortgage issue, sometimes it's a purchase, whatever. As varied as the issues are, they all come down to the same thing: an utter and complete lack of competent representation. 9 times out of 10, when they walk in the office, they say, this is my problem. I listen to the story, I take notes, I kind of figure out what we're going to do. And I ask, try to do it gently, but I always ask, was there a realtor involved with this? And they all kind of sheepishly look down at their shoes, and they go, no. Ask me how I could tell. Because if they had actually involved a realtor, somebody who was licensed, somebody who works under a set of regulations and a set of guidelines, their problem would not have happened. So I see this all the time. So my chief question, and I'm sure it's going to be pretty easy to answer, is why, if you had to kind of sum it up, why is the public better off, other than the extraordinarily obvious reasons I just stated, why is the public better off using a licensed realtor than trying to do it themselves?
Well, it is the $100,000 question, and the answer to that is, this is the biggest purchase that you're ever going to do in your life.
Amen.
Let's be clear here. I mean, especially in Southern California. Yeah. And why wouldn't you put it in the hands of somebody who's knowledgeable, somebody who goes by a code of ethics in dealing with the public and dealing with other realtors, and this is the person that you want representing yourself in this transaction. And it's as simple as that, because they have the knowledge, they have the resources for education, whereas other agents who are not realtors don't. The NAR says that there are probably a little over 2 million agents in the country. About 1 million of those are realtors. So that's a pretty pretty big number a disparity. I think there should absolutely. I think there should be more realtors.
Well, if you are a realtor and you're listening, I'll give you my favorite line to answer this. Feel free to use this. Go ahead. I've heard other people crib it before. What I say to clients constantly is, you wouldn't walk into court without your attorney. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't go into surgery without your doctor. Mm-hmm. Why in the world are you going to a real estate transaction without your realtor?
Exactly.
I don't understand it.
Right.
Because we are licensed, we are held to a standard, where there is continuing education that you have to keep up on a regular basis. There's some oversight, and there's a code of ethics that we're all supposed to conform to. And we all know there are bad apples, and they stick out more than the good apples, because people just do their job, don't tend to make headlines because they don't get arrested or indicted and things like that. And so when one goes bad, it's always, whatever the city is, it's always the headline. San Fernando Valley Realtor does horrible. And that's fine. I'm not going to say there's those things don't come up, and they do. But when they come up, the board doesn't rally around bad activity. They don't rally around bad actors.
Right.
The whole point is to keep everything, on an even keel and have it fair and equitable for all parties. That's sort of the idea. So I'm always astonished that people don't bother. Everyone knows a realtor. Everyone knows 10 realtors in Southern California, for goodness sake. I know some people know more realtors than I do. Which is kind of ridiculous, but and they still decide to do these things on their own. And sometimes we'll get situations where they just don't know any better, like they've got a mortgage problem, and they don't think that, realtors only buy and sell houses is what they think. They don't realize that we do all these other things as well. Use us as a resource. That's what we're here for. I mean, most realtors, I'll speak for the industry, most realtors know much more about mortgages than the clients that they're representing. They know much more about escrow. They know much more about title. And if they don't, they can turn to the experts like title reps, like escrow officers, etc., and get those questions answered and make sure you're squared away.
Yeah, it's a complex transaction. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do on your own. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have the government that requires you to do certain things as a seller, and you don't do it right, you could find yourself, after the whole thing is over, that it be unwound.
Yeah,
and
it can all come apart. Yeah, no, as a matter of fact, it's great. It's a little segue. It's a great point. I've got a client right now in the office who thinks she inherited her father's home because she lives there. Oh. She has in no way inherited her father's home. Her brother has inherited her father's home, and he's a little miffed about the fact that she lives there. And they're having quite the argument, and I appreciate that, and I'd like to solve their argument. But again, what does this come down to? Was there a will? No. Is your brother on title? With your dad? Yes. Well, are you on title? No. Well, your brother now owns this house.
Right.
So whatever your situation may be with whatever your family dynamic is, your failure to plan, because apparently dad wanted her to have the house and all this good stuff. And I wasn't there for any of this. I don't know what's true or not, but I like to believe the client. But you don't own the house. Right. Your rights to the house do not exist. You are in no way, shape, or form mentioned. So again, failure to plan. If they had competent cash, she'd gone to a realtor at some point, preferably before her dad died, right, and said, hey, this is what we want to do. If they'd come to me, I would have told them to go talk to a wills and trust attorney because they really need to set something up. Right. And I would have said, hey, if you want your daughter to inherit the house, you can put her on title now and kind of do it that way. Or you can do it this other. But really what you need to do is talk to a wills and trust attorney and do some estate planning. Not much, but do some. Right. Aside from just even the tax consequence, if you do some planning versus not is critical. And I also speak because my wife's an attorney, so I'm big on attorneys as well. Well, I'll put it to you this way. In addition to having my own in-house, and I mean in my own home counsel, she's smarter than I am. She's more educated than I am. So I ask her questions and I get answers. I don't always agree. She's laughing right now, but I don't always agree. She's shaking her head saying you never agree. But if I can't see her, but I can feel that. But she's smarter than I am, so I ask her questions. A realtor is better educated than the public is. Ask him or her questions. Correct. And it's okay if they don't know. They'll go find out for you.
They will point you in the right direction, which is what they're supposed to do. I mean, we are not attorneys. We will point you in the direction of an attorney to get that advice. And we have, as you said, we have a lot of resources available to you, and we will direct you because that's our job, is to direct you and to make this big purchase the easiest transaction of your life.
That's the. It should be fun. I mean, you're buying a house, for goodness sake. It should be a good time. You're moving into a new place, or you're selling a place. It should be, there's always going to be a certain amount of stress because moving is stressful. Yes. But it should be. It's shopping. I love to shop. That should be fun. And unfortunately, it just gets so complicated, and it's because it's become an overly complicated system. And I think that's by necessity, because California is an incredibly litigious state, more than most of the others. Everybody's suing everybody for something, it would seem.
As a broker of 4 offices, I know.
Yeah, I have one small office in Valencia. There are like 8 of us, and I worry about it. With 1,000, it's beyond me. Yeah, so it's go to that realtor and ask. Because I took an informal survey over the last week, knew I was going to have you on, because my wife is a real estate attorney, so I know a lot of real estate attorneys, more than I need, that's for sure. And I asked them, how often do you see a case that had they had a realtor involved, I didn't even finish the sentence. They went, oh God, yeah, constantly. It's always, I asked friends who are in title, I asked title reps, how often do you guys see or title officers? How many title issues do you see? Like, oh yeah, constantly. Because it's like this one I was using as an example. She thinks she's inherited the house.
Right.
She thinks she inherited when her dad died 2 years ago. She doesn't think her brother can do it. It has a leg to stand on, etc. No, he owns the house.
Right.
And had you talked to anybody along this train of thought, had you talked to anybody who had a license, I mean a real estate license, that is, they could have told you, they could have pointed you in the right direction, and all of this could have been avoided.
Right.
Now you got to give the house to your brother.
Right.
You got to. There's no probate fight to have, because he's on title. So that's just a done deal. But we see this over and over and over and over again. And I don't mean to be self-serving about it. Obviously, I'm a realtor. I'd much rather they call me, because I'm just like that. But I think most realtors are. But the reality is, you don't have to call me. Call anybody. Call anyone who has a real estate license that you feel is competent, that you feel you can trust, and let them point you in the right direction. That is the point.
Right.
That's the job description, as it were.
Absolutely.
So, but all right, I tell you what, let's get into, since we know that, so now we've discussed why you have to have a realtor and why that's an important thing. So let's get into, because I had a whole slew of questions for you, and the more I read through them, even talking to the cats about it, they were bored. So let's get into some of the public questions I got, because I'm very blessed to have in my life some very, very strange and wonderful people.
So these are non-realtors?
These are actually 2 of them are realtors from my office. You'll be able to spot the realtor questions. Believe me, you'll be able to spot the realtor questions. But let's start with this. So my friend Katie, I asked her last night, I said, if you could ask a question of the president of SRAR, what would you ask? And she came back with one I thought was great. Actually came back with a slew of them, but this is my favorite of the group. What protections does Southland Regional Association of Realtors have in place to protect clients from bad actors?
Well, realtors are held to that code of ethics. And so there is a system in place where we have a professional standards division or department within SRAR, where a member of the public, a fellow realtor, can bring a grievance against those bad actors. And then they are and they're brought before a panel of pro standards individuals, and there's a hearing, and they're, depending on how egregious the infraction is, that there's several things that the association can do.
Well, there's discipline on a couple levels, right? There's discipline at the local board, and if they really misbehave, there's discipline.
If they really misbehave, I will tell you that if there is a dollar fine associated with a violation, then that's published on a website that CAR has. So if they've been fined, that you can find those individuals on a public facing website at CAR. And depending on how egregious it is, as I said, it could then be brought to the DRE for either restricting the licensee or even revoking their license.
Even a criminal referral to the DA's office.
Right, really exactly. The DA in regards to money issues.
Because we actually counted it up because I didn't really thought about this because I've never been in trouble in the thing. It's really not that hard. I've been doing this for 30 years. All you got to do is tell the truth, and you're really kind of not an issue. The issues I've had are usually MLS violations and things like that. But that's just every year I used to send the board $100. And just say, let me know when I've gone through that, like it was on account. And at first it doesn't happen often. If it happened, I was doing this to be funny because I know a lot of the people. Bridget in particular I thought this was funny. And then I did that one year too many, and the joke got a little stale. And I got back a check saying, don't do this again.
Right.
We don't find this funny. Like, oh, that's too bad. So we counted up because I never really thought about it in these terms. There are 5 regulatory agencies that every realtor is beholden to. There's SRAR, of course, local board.
Right.
There's California Association. There's the National Association.
Right.
There's the Department of Real Estate, state agency, and then ultimately there's the DA's office.
Correct.
So those are 5 different levels that if you use a realtor, they are held to. If you do not, best of luck to you.
Right.
It's just not going to go well. So.
And I would encourage, I would encourage that fellow realtors to, if they feel that they've been wronged, to file a grievance.
Yeah.
I was the chair of grievance for a couple of years. I was vice chair and then chair. And, everybody says, oh, the process, it takes too long. But if you don't do it, if you don't point out these bad actors, then they just continue to do it to somebody else.
And they get worse.
So right, and it gets worse.
Yeah.
And because they've gotten away with it. So you have to take the time, because we are self-policing. We really are.
Yeah.
So I really encourage realtors to file these grievances.
Luckily, at least in my this is the first time I've met you, and you were the head of the grievance committee, so I think that speaks well of me for a while. But no, I find that. It doesn't happen often. It's incredibly rare. But once every 3 or 4 years, I'll run across something that is really that bad.
Right.
I've certainly filed grievances, and we've certainly gone down. It's like a little mini trial. We've gone down and done the whole thing, and everybody gets a chance to view their opinion. It's done in a very how should I put this? Confined manner, very kind of proper. There are rules of conduct and stuff, and everybody kind of sticks to that. And it works really well. It's not a free for all, and it's not like you file a grievance and it's just they'll just ignore it. I hear that a lot. No. I have never once brought up even the smallest grievance and had SRAR ignore it.
Right.
Ever. I'm also pretty hard to ignore in general. But, I don't know why the people down at SRAR isn't. I mean, they're all very nice people. My question is always, why are they nice to me? Because I am constantly a pain in the rear. I just can't help it. I'm just a contrarian.
I don't know you, so I don't know.
See, that's why. You've spent the last few minutes with me. You're forming an opinion, I'm sure. I hope it's a positive one. Anyway, no, they're tremendously nice people. Oh my gosh, have they been good to me? Because that's the other thing. As a realtor, you can call the board with all kinds of questions. They'll answer them for you, or they'll point you in the right direction.
Right.
Fantastic resource. Let's move on to another one. So this is from my friend Sally, who I adore. But Sally she's one of the crazier people I know. And she said, should first-time buyers wait to buy until the market comes down?
No. If you can qualify for a loan now, you should get into the market now.
So when is the best time to buy? When you can.
When you can, absolutely. Inventory is down. It's been down for years. So there isn't a lot to choose from. So get into it. I know it's frustrating for a lot of buyers who have been into multiple offers and not gotten it. It takes buyers a while to learn
cycle.
To learn that lesson. We're not going to go asking, we're going to go under asking, and you do that a couple of times and lose it, then smart buyers will catch on.
Yeah. So I mean, if for example, if you were a buyer and you bought a house at the beginning of the pandemic, you probably got about 18% equity right now, give or take, because we went up about 25, 28%. We've come down about 10% sort of on average, and now that number's starting to bounce back up again. So it goes up and down. It goes up and down. It's not like the stock market, but housing is always a good investment.
It is.
What? Here's a trivia question. What do the top 3 richest people in the world all have in common?
They own real estate.
They're all the largest landowners in the world. Most real estate. What are the top 10 corporations, top 10 most profitable corporations the world all have in common? Same story. They all own the most amount of real estate.
Yes.
There's always a direct correlation in Western societies, and I would say worldwide now, between wealth and real estate. And the sooner you get into it, and the more of it you manage to accumulate, the wealthier you're going to be. In general, there are certainly different things, different people. If you invested in an Apple computer 20 years ago, I think you're doing just fine. Probably outstripping real estate. Although if you bought a house in Palo Alto, which is where they're based 20 years ago, you probably did even better with that than you would with Apple stock.
Exactly.
So the answer to your question, Sally, is now, which is what I've been telling you for years.
It is cyclical. I mean, from my own experience my partner and I bought our first house in '98, and then we ended up buying the house next door in 2006, spending 3 times the amount of money on that house than we did on our original house.
But now,
but then the market crashed. So
now...
the plan was to renovate that house, move into it for 2 years, establish that primary residence, then either sell both of them, blah blah blah. But then the market crashed, so we ended up being stuck in that house. But 10 years later, we got every cent out of that house that we put into it plus.
Yeah.
So yes.
I have a similar story. I bought one in April of 2008. I could not have timed it worse if I had tried. If I had said I would like to buy at the absolute peak of the market in Southern California,
exactly.
when will that be? April of 2008. But, we held it till 2014, I think, and we did well. We didn't just break even. We actually made money on it after all.
Exactly.
And that's the thing with real estate. You hang in long enough, you'll do well.
Absolutely.
So, hey, I see we're rolling around trying to... Can you stay with us? I've got some more questions. Can you stay with us our next? Would you do that for us? Oh, that's fantastic. I also asked you on the air, so I guess you had kind of...
I had no choice.
I guess I should have been more clever. But again, I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing with real estate. I'm in good shape there. Right. But as far as broadcasting, I'm still learning. Anyway, so let's go to break. We'll take a little break. We'll talk to some advertisers. Now we come back, we'll have some more of these questions because I'm having a good... I hope you're having a good time.
Absolutely.
We'll have some fun. We'll have some cookies. You've been listening to The Fix with Rich on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. Listen to some advertisers. Come back. We'll hear some more with the president of SRAR. Hi there, welcome back. You're listening to The Fix with Rich on KHTS, whatever. You're listening to it on the radio, 98.1 FM, KHTS, AM 1220. It's just that kind of day today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're sitting with Rich Pisani, president of SRAR, Board of Realtors, and somebody who has wealth of real estate information and realtor information. And so we were asking him questions that I got from some friends of mine in the public, and we're having a good time doing it. So let's move back into these, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So from this is actually from my cousin. He was trying very hard to be helpful.
Okay.
And he knows his job inside and out and backwards. But he's my cousin, and he trusts me. So anything that's real estate, he says go handle it. Which makes for a great client, I gotta say. It's lovely. Unless I make a mistake, in which case I feel awful because he's put it completely in my hands. So we don't make mistakes. Anyway, what he asked was. This is what he and his wife suggested I ask you. What do you like most about real estate, and how do you handle the stress? I think that may have more to do with me than you, but that is their question.
Now, what I always was in my early career in real estate. I always was fascinated with the structure of the paperwork and the documents, and which makes it such a great transition to be a broker.
Sure.
Because agents hate the paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
I even did some TC work.
Yeah.
So I loved that part of it. I'll be honest, I wasn't that great as a salesperson, but the paperwork and the structure I loved. Stress. I had a great group of friends, and I split my time between LA area and the desert. I have a place in the desert, so I guess that's how I handle the stress.
Well, okay, fair enough. I thought that sounded like a question that you would ask, like your fifth grade class would ask your parents going to work day. Although I do appreciate the question,
sure.
But I mean, we're related, so we can't stop talking. He's got no choice. No. I'm not as nice to him. I'm nice to his wife, though. I love his wife. Anyway, this was one of my favorite questions. This is from a friend of mine named Steve, and I've known Steve since high school, and he's, oh boy, is he a problem. This is a question. I said, for the president of the Board of Realtors, this is what you want me to... Okay, I'll do it. Why do I need to pay so much money to sell my house? Well, and I guarantee you he said it just like that when he was writing.
I'm sure he did. Sure. Because, as I said, it's the biggest transaction of your life, buying and selling, and NAR has determined that using a realtor in the selling of your house will get you more money.
Yeah,
because they're great at negotiating. Yeah. They're great. They have the training. They are looking out for your best interest, and they'll get you the best deal.
Yeah. So. NRR posted a statistic. It was a while ago, but on average, selling by yourself versus selling with a realtor, there's no statistic on buying, 8% more.
Right.
Which doesn't sound terribly impressive until you do the math. When the average sales price is $800,000,
sure,
we're talking about $160,000. I mean, it's a lot of money.
Exactly.
And that's usually also liability.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this forever. None of my clients have ever had an issue. I've had clients get sued. It happens. but we've never lost.
Right.
It's never been anything but small claims court. We've won every single time. And again, it's because of the paper. It's because of knowing what you're doing, dotting your I's, crossing your T's. We had one once years ago where a realtor sued. It was a realtor who bought the house. Sued my client. It was on acreage. And because we said in the MLS, this is years ago. This is the training wheels version of the MLS way back when. There was still a book, for goodness sake. That we had said that there are sprinklers in the backyard. Because there are. There's also a pool in the backyard. But because there wasn't sprinklers on all the rest of the acreage, and this is when small claims court was $5,000, surprisingly, he had a bid for $4,995 that he was suing for. And it was fun because the judge, it was, when you're in small claims court, the client has to testify. You can't, but I get to go as an expert witness.
Right.
So once we got past that, and I explained, here's the contract. It's all in the paperwork. Here's the contract. The judge went, oh, actually said from the bench, oh, I see. And he was staring at the plaintiff. Oh, I see what happened here. And then he said, oh, you're a realtor as well? And the buyer said, yes. The judge goes, okay. And I thought, yeah, we're in good shape. We're going to be just fine. And of course, the judge came down and said, no, he didn't mean you had to water all the acreage. Anyway, that's what I want to know. So why do you need, Steve, why do I need to pay a realtor for the same thing I've been telling you? I should also point out, Steve has never paid me.
Oh, really?
I've known him since high school. I started working at his dad's tire pit when we were in high school. That's how he and I met. I never got a paycheck from the tire pit, so they still owe me money for that. And that was 30 years ago, 35. And I've represented him in transaction after transaction. And the only time I ever get paid is when he's buying a house and somebody else is paying me. He never pays me when he's selling me. When he's selling a house. And the reason for that is simple. I love his mother, and his mother feeds me every time I see her, and I can't have her mad at me because she's a little Italian woman, and I don't want her yelling at me ever. I live in fear of this. So I have never charged him. So Steve, I don't know why
Everybody should fear little Italian
moms.
women.
Yeah,
being Italian myself.
She also feeds me all the time. There was a time in my life when I was pushing 350 pounds, and I'd walk in her house, and she'd say, "Oh, you must be hungry." No, I'm fine. And then still, here, have a lasagna to go. Yeah. Oh, all right, like normal.
I'm only going to throw it out. My aunt
oh God, yeah. Do you know her? No. She lives in Simi. Yeah. So I don't know why he complains all the time. Steve's one great thing though is he gets divorced constantly.
Oh.
We're the same age. I'm 53. He has been married and divorced 5 times. The only saving grace is the woman he's with now. He's been with for years. She's great. They're going to be together forever. Thank you, Janet. But because he needs your help. But she refused to marry him for years. He kept asking her, and he kept saying, "Why would I marry you? I know your ex-wives. You're a horrible husband." They bought houses together, have a business together. So finally, she finally broke down and married him. I don't know how he managed to pull that off. But anyway, I don't know why he's complaining. He gets free real estate anyway.
There you go.
But that's his big question. Okay, let's move one more question. We'll squeeze in one more here. Okay, this is from a realtor. This is a realtor question. One of the realtors works for me. This is from Patricia. So thank you for this question. When the Fed makes policy decisions that affect home sales, do they seek opinions from the Southland Regional Association of Realtors?
Absolutely not.
I love that she thought that they would. I like the idea that she thought that Jerome Powell was going to call, being the president of the Fed,
no.
He's going to pick up the phone and call you.
Yes.
Hi, Rich. What do you think about interest rates?
No.
It would be nice, though.
It would be nice.
I wouldn't mind you having advised them. That'd be fine with me.
Yes, it would be nice.
So no, Patricia, they don't. And she knows that. I'm not sure she's being funny or what she was looking there. I did get another question from my mom, who she asked, what are we doing to end homelessness? And I thought that might be a little bit too much for a morning radio show where I've only got you on for 15 or 20 minutes. I know that the board is doing some outreach stuff. So we do
outreach. We have our own foundation, and part of that foundation each year they contribute part of the money that we raise for the foundation to organizations that are housing and homelessness organizations. Last year, I haven't gotten the list this year yet, but last year, Hope of the Valley. Ken Crane, who does a great job in helping homelessness. He's built a camp where they have temporary housing for homeless, and we contribute to his organization every year.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But there are other organizations also.
There's a lot of stuff SRAR does. We are into housing. We're about as into housing as you can possibly get. We've all devoted our lives to housing. Yes. So we're into it. And so to answer Mom's question, they're doing quite a lot. I think the other question is, Mom, what are you doing? You're a member of SRAR. You can go show up. But SRAR does a ton of stuff. Does an absolute ton of stuff. And I wanted to touch on one last thing. This is non-real estate. Okay. But I have 2 things. One came from your staff.
My staff?
From your staff.
Okay.
It wasn't a question. It was, you should mention that he works on the Tonys. And I said, well, will he like that? I don't want to do that's going to make him mad. He's doing me a favor by coming on. I might like to have him on again at some point, which he said, no, he'll love that. So I should ask you, how did you like working on the Tonys? Because that's pretty.
I love it. I love working on it. I have a 30-year background in entertainment,
Yeah.
and I've worked many shows, and throughout my career, I've kept my foot in it. And I was able this year to once again work the Tonys, which I really appreciated, and it gets me to New York, it gets me to see some shows, but I also really enjoy. Once again, it's a structure thing. I do logistics for talent, so I really enjoy it. And,
I don't know where the heck you find the time. I got to talk to you about time management.
I-
You're doing it better than I am.
I have SRAR. The staff at SRAR is great. They work around my schedule, and I have to say, the owners of my company, who I have 4 offices with, it's written in my contract, but I am allowed to do extracurricular things as long as it doesn't interfere, and it doesn't. I'm working with stars, Broadway stars, and I'm answering agents' questions.
That's the part that
even
blows
on
me.
the day of the Tonys.
How do they not interfere? That's the part I don't get. We'll talk off here. Maybe you can give some tips. Okay, one last thing I want to mention real quick before we wrap up. I also know you're very involved with Greyhound Rescues.
I am.
Just shout out to the Greyhound Rescues. Got to wrap up.
Graysave.org.
Those of you who are
Yes.
interested, we do a lot of stuff with a lot of animal outreach and stuff like that.
Yes.
So graysave.org. They save greyhounds. They're doing a lot of great work. They're taking them out of racetracks and getting them rehomed. They're also puppies as well. So graysave.org. If you guys are interested, please check it out. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. I cannot believe it's fantastic.
It was painless.
Oh, well, that's helpful that I don't know what I'm doing, so that's probably why. So thank you guys for listening. It's been a wonderful Friday morning, and thank you for coming on. Rich Pisani, president of SRAR, thank you for answering our questions, some of them silly. I appreciate that. Thank you, my friends who wrote in and gave me questions to ask. I appreciate that. You've been listening to The Fix with Rich on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220. I'm Rich Sherman, your host, and I want to thank you guys for listening. I'm always here to help, and you guys have a great weekend. If you have any questions, call me anytime, 661-714-1400. That number again, 661-714-1400. I'm Rich Sherman. Have a great week.